So those are the two levels. Your general neglect that doesn't result in the willful or malicious maiming, killing, disfiguring, or mutilating a dog is a summary offense. Like I say, they can be prohibited from owning animals. Actually, if it's a misdemeanor violation upon conviction, they can be prohibited from owning animals up to 2 years. But if there's multiple counts, like if they've abused several animals, you could add that on. You know, if they're convicted on 3 counts of misdemeanor cruelty, 6 years prohibition of ownership of animals, and they could be ordered to forfeit their own animals if that's what they abused. There's also a room for restitution in there as well. Although if they abuse somebody else's animal, you essentially have to sue them civilly for vet costs.
Before we go to Annette, we're going to go, do you have any other questions that you want to try to get in maybe by the end of the show?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay.
I'll try.
Well, I actually have a question. Well, first, the statement. First of all, I want to make you aware of, and the audience aware of, there is an effort now, at least on the internet, I believe possibly in this state, to get a Megan's Law type of law that would list abusers of animals and create a database in an online, sort of like Megan's Law, which would be an animal abusers law. I like your comments on that. And also, before you get to that, I personally would like to know why there's such, in your opinion, or from a legal standpoint, why there's no equity when an animal is disfigured, mutilated, or killed, quite honestly murdered, why the law does not imprison these people for 2, 20, or even life imprisonment. Because I personally feel, Albert Torcaso feels, that if you do the crime, you should do the time. And if you deliberately go out there to kill an animal, I think you should get at least a minimum of 10 to 15 years in prison.
I agree.
And I feel that way because if we do that to a human being,
I feel that way too.
that's a life sentence usually, or it's at least 10 to 15. So why is there the inequality, and how do you feel about the Megan's Law type of law being open? I mean, as a person or as a profession, you can answer those.
There should be stricter punishment.
Well, let's let the officer answer.
I don't have a problem with the Megan's Law type thing. I mean, there is a website now, I can't remember what it is, that does list convictions of animal abusers on the internet. It's not that well updated, and it's not comprehensive. But yeah, you know, a Megan's Law, so that a person knows an animal abuser's in the neighborhood, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That would be a good idea, personally and professionally. Your second question, why? Well, that's a good question. I mean, most people do get probation. It has to be a heinous crime of animal cruelty, really heinous, for a person to actually do jail time. Why is it? I guess animals still have a lesser priority in the grand scheme of
lesser value,
I guess. Lesser
eyes.
value, you know, in the eyes of the law. There's always the concern about overcrowding in the jail. I don't know how much of a concern that is when it comes to sentencing animal abusers. If they're a first-time animal abuser, they're going to take that into consideration if they don't have a criminal record, you know, and whatever mitigating circumstances are and things of that sort that the defense attorney will put up there. I mean, some people, like I say, if it's a heinous crime that involves torture of an animal that makes the news in a big way, then you're probably going to get some fairly serious jail time. But actually, in Pennsylvania, the maximum amount of time a person can serve would be for a felony of the 3rd degree, and that would involve dog fighting, or I think killing and mutilating zoo animals, and maybe police dogs as well.
Okay.
So you could do up to 7 years for that violation, but a felony of the 3rd degree is the harshest level of crime in Pennsylvania.
I will say this before we go to a tape roll, and then we're going to bring Annette into the fray. I just want to end with this. This is to all the politicians in the city of Pittsburgh, the county of Allegheny County, the state of Pennsylvania, and to our national leaders in D.C. We need to change these laws, to update them, to have people put in prison. And as far as overcrowding in prison, I have a perfect idea. Why don't we let the nonviolent drug offenders end up getting rehabilitation and work on rehabilitating them, and maybe letting them get rehabilitation instead of locking them up, and the violent animal abusers and child abusers will put them in prison. Take out the nonviolent, put the violent in, and make society safer. I don't know, it's kind of a crazy idea, but I think maybe that might just be a good idea. So politicians, get off your potato chips where you sit down, because we don't want to swear, but get off your buns and start putting violent animal abusers, child abusers, and murderers in prison. Because if you don't, I may have to campaign for political office, and Lord knows you don't want that. So with that, let's go ahead, and I am serious.
That's right.
If you don't get it right, politicians, you will see candidate Albert Torcaso before 2014. And you don't want a candidate Albert Torcaso, because I will beat your potatoes in the race. But with that, Kurt, if you will, could we go to the 2-minute tape roll?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Kathy Payer, and I'm co-host of Humanity Matters. And the first question I wanted to know is, what made you decide to get involved with pets and animals?
I started riding at what used to be Seaman Stables in Shenley Park. I'm not going to admit how many years ago.
Okay.
This was in Pittsburgh, and when I was working there, I made up my mind that if I ever had horses of my own, I was going to make sure I shared them with other people. It really upset me at the time. There were probably 3 dozen horses in the barn, owned by people who never got ridden and never got out of the barn. And there were 20 kids that were giving them lots of time. Me. Lots of time to ride and get out and enjoy life. So that's why we're here with our horses.
Are they hard to take care of?
There are a lot of man hours. It's not hard. It takes a lot of them. Observe them all the time, watch them. It's certainly getting expensive to take care of them. It's good exercise. I'd rather spend the money on them than on a gym.
That's true.
What about you?
It's not hard at all.
It's not. I don't know. I guess some people would say it's hard work. It doesn't bother us.
I'm Annette Mendel. I'm also the co-host of Humanity Matters, and I'm going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Sure.
How have you ever been involved with racing horses?
Only as rescues or taking them on to rehab them, pass them on to people that could give them training and get them into good homes for the rest of their life.
Okay, so these horses aren't race horses.
No, these horses are not race horses. They have race horse ancestors, some of them, but they have never been on the track.
Well, everyone, that was Kathy's first ever interview. She's a little bit nervous, but you know, this is her second interview ever, and she's doing a pretty good job, I think. So I'm about to say you're doing all right.
Thank you.
And with that, Annette's first ever time as a host, and now the one and only Annette Mendel is on TV.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Humanity Matters. As you know, we are now in the month of June, and in 20 days marks the first day of summer. So we're going to talk a little bit about summer today. I have some festivals and fairs in Pittsburgh and also in Western Pennsylvania. For those who are interested in being in the outdoors during the summertime and activities and events that they have to offer, I'm going to give you a list of festivals and fairs and events in the local areas and the surrounding Pennsylvania areas.